So we're diving into Elder Stevenson's talk, Bridging the Two Great Commandments. You want to explore how faith and good deeds, how they work together. So let's get right to it.
Yeah, this whole bridge thing he's talking about, it's really interesting, isn't it? It makes you think about connecting things, overcoming obstacles. It's a good way to start thinking about these commandments, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And he doesn't just say any bridge, right? He talks about the Golden Gate Bridge. It's like he's saying these commandments, loving God, loving your neighbor, they're that important. Like they're essential for a strong life, just like that bridge is essential,
Yeah.
But the cool thing is how he ties it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. These two commandments are like, what is it, the cornerstone, the bedrock. They're at the heart of the Christian faith. Love God with everything you've got and love your neighbor as yourself.
Hmm.
They're often seen kind of separately, though, right? But Elder Stevenson, he's saying they're totally woven together.
Two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, exactly. Or like he says, the twin towers of a bridge. Each one supports the other.
So you can't just focus on one, like trying to build a life just on loving God but forgetting about other people. It'd be like building, I don't know, a bridge with just one tower.
Exactly. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't be balanced. And then on the other hand, trying to be a good person without any connection to something bigger, well, that's like what? Building a bridge without any anchor?
Just floating away.
Yeah, exactly. You need both, right?
Yeah.
For that strong foundation.
And that's what we really want to unpack, right?
Yeah.
How do you actually live this bridge building idea? Because let's face it, we all know people who maybe focus too much on one tower.
Right. And that's what's great about this talk. He actually gives us examples. He talks about Sister Mueller, a widow who, even though she was struggling herself, still donated her dime, for fast offerings.
Yeah, and it seems like such a small thing,
But it's not, right?
Yeah.
It shows how loving God is about the everyday stuff we do, not just grand gestures.
it makes you wonder, what are our dimes? Those little everyday things that really show our faith.
It reminds us that faith, it's not just for Sundays. It's about how we live our lives every single day. Every act of kindness, every time we help someone, it's like adding another brick to that bridge.
So we've been talking about these dimes, these little acts of faith. But Elder Stevenson doesn't just stop there, does he? He takes this whole loving your neighbor thing to a whole other level.
Yeah, he really does. He's talking about loving everyone, and I mean everyone. It doesn't matter where they come from, what they believe, even their choices. It's about loving them anyway.
And that's tough. Like, he uses that story of Brother Evans, right, who felt like guided to help this family that was really struggling. I mean, he didn't even know these people.
Right. And it wasn't just a one-time thing either, right? It turned into years of support, completely changing this family's life.
It makes you think, right? It's easy to say we love everyone, but like actually acting on it, especially when it's hard, when it means going out of our comfort zone, that's different.
It really is. And this is where that bridge idea, it all comes back, Because if we're just focused on our own connection to God, but then we ignore everyone else, haven't we missed something?
Totally. Like we're building one half of the bridge, but it doesn't actually connect to anything.
Exactly. And Elder Stevenson, he's really clear about this whole balance thing. Remember how he talked about the bridge tipping over? He's saying if we're neglecting one side of things, whether it's love for God or love for others, well, our whole life bridge, it's going to be shaky.
Like we're so focused on getting our own little section perfect that we forget, the bridge needs to actually reach the other side.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not just like a religious thing, this whole balance idea. You see it everywhere, like in society, right? Look at how divided things are. People digging in their heels, not even trying to see the other side.
Like everyone's building walls instead of bridges,
Exactly. And that's the opposite of what Elder Stevenson's talking about. He's calling for connection, understanding, seeing the good in everyone, even when they're different.
Okay, so we've got these two towers, right? Loving God, loving our neighbor.
Yeah.
And we know we got to balance them. But how do we actually do that? Where do you even start building?
And well, he says something kind of surprising, I think. He says you just start. You just take that first step.
So it's not about having this big, perfect plan, like right from the get-go.
No, because even the Golden Gate Bridge, right? I mean, that's this incredible feat of engineering. But it started as just an idea, a sketch on a napkin, It's about taking those first steps, those small things that add up over time.
So like what could those first steps even look like?
Well, it could be anything, right? Like maybe setting aside time for prayer, or maybe it's volunteering, getting involved in your community. It could even be just like trying to be a little more understanding, more forgiving in your relationships.
Or just smiling at someone you don't know,
Oh.
or like Holding the door open, those everyday things.
Exactly. It's about finding those little bricks in your own life, you know? Those little things that show you care, that show you love something bigger than yourself and the people around you.
And it's a journey, right?
Mhm.
It's not like you just build it once and you're done. Life happens. Things get tough.
For sure. And that's where I think this bridge metaphor, it really shines. Because Elder Stevenson, he's not saying you build it and forget about it. He's talking about constantly checking for cracks, making sure the foundation's still strong.
It's like you could have the most amazing bridge in the world, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't take care of it, it's going to fall apart. So how do we keep our own bridges strong, especially when, life throws curveballs?
He talks about staying connected to our source of strength, whatever that is for each of us. For some people, it's prayer, reading scriptures, maybe going to church. For others, maybe it's being in nature or having a community, doing things that, feed their soul.
It's about realizing we're not meant to do this alone, right? We need that connection, that support to get through the rough stuff.
Absolutely. And that connection, it gives us the strength to keep going, to keep showing love, even when it's hard, even when, we don't agree with someone.
Yeah.
It's about seeing that spark of good in everyone and trying to build them up, not tear them down.
So really, this whole bridging the two great commandments thing, it's about realizing we're all connected
Right.
to something bigger than ourselves and to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And when we can live in that space of balance where we're showing love for God and love for others, that's when we create something really amazing, something that can weather any storm.
And it made us wonder, because, Elder Stevenson's obviously coming from a Christian perspective, but is this just a Christian idea? Or are there, universal truths here, things that apply to everyone no matter what they believe? Like, even if you're not, strictly Christian, there's still something powerful about building your life on love and purpose and connection.
Totally. It's like you see these ideas, these bridge building ideas in so many different places, like Buddhism. Compassion's huge there. Loving kindness, not just for your family and friends, but for everyone.
Like what Elder Stevenson was saying about loving everyone no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got Hinduism, where it's all about interconnectedness. Everything's part of this one big divine reality.
Which kind of brings us back to balance, right? If we're all connected, well, it changes how we see each other, how we treat each other.
Right. It's way harder to be angry or judgmental, when you remember that deep down we're all connected. And even in humanism, where it's all about reason and ethics, they still talk about compassion, about making the world a better place, helping those who are suffering.
It's like no matter what you believe, that message still comes through that we're all in this together. Our actions have an impact,
And that even little things, little acts of love, they make a difference. It's about trying to be a bridge builder, someone who brings people together instead of pushing them apart, someone who chooses love, not fear.
So as you're going about your day, maybe you're even crossing an actual bridge, we want you to think about this. What does it mean for you to love fully, to be that bridge builder? How can you connect with something bigger than yourself? And how can you share that connection with the world around you?
Because the world, it can always use a few more bridges.
That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Make sure to check back next week when we dive into a brand new topic.